How to make Eurodance, Marlon, Hoffstadt, DJ Heartstring style. I'm going to be showing you everything you need to know. You can get this full Ableton project at the top of the description on my website, plus all the samples and presets and MIDI. Thanks for the support, guys, and let's dive in. Alright, we're at 150 BPM. First thing we got here is our kick. So it's a pretty hard kick. There's a little bit of stuff going on here. You can see I made it a lot shorter, right, so that it wouldn't get in the way of the bass. I've also got this little overdrive here, so without it, with it, essentially it sort of emphasizes the mid-range and the high end a bit, and it gives the kick a lot more punch. It really makes it like push through the mix. If I turn this off and then on, so yeah, that's how you can really get that like very clicky, punchy kick that's going to cut through the mix, is make sure it's short enough to leave room for the bass, and then the little overdrive method. Then we got our bass line. So here's the chord progression for the track. It's F minor, D sharp major, C minor, C sharp major, and then another D sharp major, walking back up to that root note. You hold this out for 2 whole bars on each chord, so you really get like a lot of, it's a very solid groove in that sense, just really letting those bass notes ring out as far as like the actual note. So it's not so abrupt, if you jump up and down too much, it can kind of like make your bass line not as punchy, right? Right, like that definitely still works musically, but if you listen, you get a lot better relationship between the bass and the kick when it's just like a longer held out chord like that. As far as the sound goes, this is made with Operator. It's a saw wave and a square wave together. There's no FM happening. Right, so those are both going into a low-pass filter with a very short, punchy envelope on it. That's really it for the bass. I didn't over-process it. There's really not much processing to be done. It's really more so just the notes and how that works with your kick. And you do gotta dial in the envelope properly, like the decay setting and the amount of the envelope and where the filter cutoff sits. That's where you're gonna spend all your time on this sound. Even though it doesn't look like there's this crazy processing chain, it's still a lot of magic that goes into that. We've also got that layered with this organ, which plays the same MIDI you just saw, and then I have this instrument rack. So it's got this operator, and then this analog here. The operator is just a really simple FM patch with 2 sine waves FMing each other. One's an octave up, and it's got that short kind of like donk envelope, right? And then we have this analog here, which is just 1 sine wave. The amp envelope's like that, and it's just 7 semitones up, so a fifth. And see, when you put that together with the other sound that's playing the root note, you get that organ. That's what the organ sound is. It's like 1 sine wave low, in this case the operator thing, and then 1 in octave and a fifth up. This is going into a bit of reverb, which is like really short if I turn off the other processing. Right, it's just a little bit of room. And then I'll put that into this auto pan so it sounds like it's being sidechained to the kick, and it keeps the reverb out of the way of the kick. And then we high pass it, getting rid of the lows and the low mids so it doesn't clash with the bass. Then we got the piano. So what we're doing here is the first chord is it's the same chord progression you just saw, but we're kind of like playing with some of the voices here. So for example, this first one is just a basic F minor chord. Obviously it's that rhythm where it's like, and you notice there's not too many notes. I give it a pause at the start and end of every bar. You know, let the reverb ring out. It doesn't have to just be don't the whole time, right? Then when it goes here, we have our basic D sharp major chord, but then I kept the C droning, which is the 5th from the original chord. So it kind of ties those chords together. Right, if I get rid of that, it's not quite as... You know, it just sounds a little more amateur. Then when we get to this C minor here, I added a 7th, so now it's a C minor 7, right? Our basic C minor chord, and then that 7th. So it kind of makes that a little less sad too, because it's got like, technically, it's got a major chord in there, right? Right, and then here, we're keeping that same note droning, and then I have the C as well there. And then there, so it kind of, that also helps it resolve nicely. Because you're just hearing that C the whole time through, and then it goes back to that, right? So it's like, even though the bottom notes are quite different, you can hear all of those chords work really well together, and it resolves really nicely as like a good 8-bar loop. Now for the sound design. So these kind of pianos aren't always as simple as they seem, right? A lot of these sounds are like these old sampler sounds where it's a lot of different things layered together. So the way that I've done it here is we've got 2 pianos. We have this shorter one. And then you can hear this brighter one, which is a bit more stereo and just adds a bit of body, whereas this one is like a bit more punchy. So it's not even so much processing. They actually have the same processing on them, right? They just got that delay and reverb and high pass and then the sidechain. And it's the same settings on both of them, but it's the sound selection. Like if I play these piano samples on their own, right, you can hear they do different things. And they also, you can hear a little bit of chorus happening there because they're not like perfect. And there's a big part of that sound is like multiple pianos layered together, but you have to do it right. Like it's like choosing 2 different ones that are going to fit like that. You can also see this one, I had to tune it to get it in key. Right, it's at +3. Also important with these is the release, right? Because if we don't do that, it's just a bit... You know, it doesn't really sound like a piano. It's a bit too choppy. So we got that. The delay, the reverb, sidechain, high pass. And then there's this saw wave thing, which has the same effects on it, literally the same settings. But then it's a saw wave, low pass filter with this envelope, making it a bit plucky, right? But the filter's high enough that it's not that much. Like you could definitely, you know. And then classic unison on that. And then I have this grouped with just a little bit more of a high pass on because I was hearing some frequencies like with the bass. Like if you turn this off and then turn it on, it's really subtle, but it works really like a lot better with the bass. So then we get this little stab happening, and I'll play it with the piano so you can hear. So, it's this old school stab, like just literally like a piece of audio. You can see I tuned it a little bit with the detune, because if you don't do that, it's like, it's subtle, but it's just a lot better fitting in key with the track, right? Sometimes you gotta do that with these old samples, and it's just playing a really simple, sparse melody. You know, and it lets it like ring out, but it sort of like accents each chord change. And it's really, really simple, right? I mean, it's basically just going root 5, 4, plus the 7 here, but very, very simple pattern. It just accents the chords and kind of fills it out nicely. This just has a bit of delay, really slow, and some reverb, a bit longer because there's room for that. High pass, and then I sidechain it to the kick. Then we get this little melody. So yeah, this is starting on the root note, and then it goes down 5, 4, 3 as far as the scale. You can hear it just works really well with the chord progression. And particularly because it adds a bit more melancholy. You know, it's not just like a basic F minor melody. It kind of like contrasts like what would be a sad key and gives it something a bit more hopeful and melancholy at the same time. Now, for the sound, this is actually a pretty simple sound. It's basically like this wavetable bell, so I'll just turn off all the processing so you can hear it. It's literally just this wavetable sitting right there, no modulation, but I got the amp envelope like this, so it's like short. You can hear it was a little too clicky, so I added a little attack that you barely notice, but it just makes it so you don't have that click at the start of the sound, but it's still like nice and punchy. A bit of noise unison on a really low setting, so it's not so intense, but it just adds a bit of that stereo width. And also, it helps spread the sound stereo-wise, so it'll fit with the other elements. Then we got this delay, reverb, sidechain, and then this one's cut like a lot, because you just really don't want anything to get in the way of the other sounds. And then we get this operator. So it's really simple, but if you hear it with the chord progression, it works really nice. Right, so it's basically going from the 3rd to the 9th to the root note. Very, very basic drone, but it just adds a little bit more to the overall like melodic sensibilities of the track. Now, this is made with a pretty simple patch. It's just kind of doing some cool stuff with it. We got this operator. So you can hear it's like this detune thing made with FM from different sine waves. One is super high up too, and detune. So you can hear you're kind of getting that like buzziness. A bit of reverb, which sort of fills it out and makes it a bit more like wide and chorused. A bit of this shaper box trance gate. So you can see I literally drew in a trance gate pattern here, and then I've just mapped it to this gain. And then played with the depth, and it's on half notes. A little bit more reverb, so you actually have reverb. Whereas this one here is more for the sound design. Right. Then high pass. And then we've sidechained it to the kick. Then we got our drums. So starting with our hi-hat and our clap. It's a nice punchy hi-hat that sits really well on top of the mix. And also kind of counterbalances the punchy kick really well. Plus, you can hear the clap as well. Like, it really hits. So what I actually did is took this really distorted clap and just made it shorter with the sustain on the amp envelope here. Right, which you can hear works a lot better, because if it's really long like that, it doesn't really fit in the mix, right? So for groove purposes, these kind of like shorter claps tend to work better with this sort of sound. Then we got a few rave loops. Just sidechain and high pass, so there's that one. And then this one, you can see one's in the mid-range, one's in the high end. And they sort of create one thing. I have a bit of breakbeat percussion. So it's literally like these pieces of a breakbeat that I chopped up. And it's really repetitive too. Like it's literally just this over and over, just that one short half note long section. High pass, and then a low pass filter, and this has an LFO on it doing eighth notes with like this ramp down. Right, so it kind of adds to the rhythm, and that sits really well with the rave loop as well. Then we got this delay percussion where I'm literally like taking very simple percussion and just kind of doing a bit of processing to it. Alright, so it's all these percussion sounds, and they're doing this like this pattern with just a bit of movement. And then I have a bandpass filter moving really slowly on that with like a pretty high resonance. The LFO is what's moving it. I've got an overdrive, which you can hear just brings that out, and it makes it sound less bandpassed and more just like it's like a moving percussion. A bit of delay to give it some rhythm, drum bus, which really ties it all together, and then a high pass filter. And then we just get this ride, which is just hitting on every quarter note. I've high passed it, and I've also got this attack envelope set like that, so it kind of like bounces off of the kick, you know? And you can hear that grooves really well with the hi-hat and the kick. So that's going to be it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. Let me know if you want to see more Eurodance in this style in the comments. Like I said, you can get this full template. It's at the top of the description right now. While it's available, make sure to grab it so you can make an awesome Eurodance track yourself today. It's a really great template to build from and make your own tracks. I appreciate the support, everybody, and I'll see you tomorrow with another video.